בהר פסגת הנשר ברג'גריהה, יחד עם סנגה גדולה של נזירים ועליה שמחה מלאה, וסנגה גדולה של בודיסטבו. באותה העת היה הבגבן, שקוע באישור מוקדמים של מניעת התופעות, הקרוי הבהרה מעמיקה. כמו כן, באותה עת, התבונן הבודיסטבא מהסטווה האריה אבלוקיטשווה הרב העוצמה, במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה, והתבונן אף בחמשת המצרפים האלה כריקים מעצם צבעם. ואז מכוח הבודה אמר כך שריקותו הנכבד לבודיסטבא מהסטווה האריה אבלוקיטשווה הרב העוצמה. כיצד יתאמן אותו בן השושלת הרוצה לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה? מי שאמר זאת, השיב כך, בודיסטבא מהסטווה האריה אבלוקיטשווה הרב העוצמה, שריקות הנכבד. שריקות השושלת רוצים לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה, התבוננו כך. התבוננו עד תום אף בחמשת המצרפים האלה כריקים מעצם טבעם. החומר ריק, הריקות היא חומר, אין ריקות מלבד חומר, ואף אין חומר מלבד ריקות. כמו כן, תחושה, הבחנה, גורמים מורכבים ותודעה ריקים. שריקות רע. כך כל התופעות הן ריקות, נטולות מאפיינים, לא נוצרות, לא פוסקות, נטולות זיהומים, מופרדות מזיהומים, ללא התמעטות, ללא התמלאות. שריקות רע. לפיכך לריקות אין חומר, אין תחושה, אין הבחנה, אין גורמים מורכבים, אין תודעה. אין עין, אין אוזן, אין אף, אין לשון, אין גוף, אין תודעה מנטלית. אין חומר, אין צלילים, אין ריחות, אין טעמים, אין מושגי מישוש, אין תופעות. אין מרכיבי עין, אין מרכיבי תודעה מנטלית, ועד למרכיבי התודעה המנטלית. אין בערות, אין הכחדת הבערות, ועד להזדקנות ומוות, ואין הכחדת הזדקנות ומוות. כמו כן, אין זכות, אין חוכמה נשגבת, אין השגה, ואף אין אי השגה. שריקות רע. לפיכך, משום שאין השגה, מסתמכים הבודיסטבות על שלמות החוכמה ושווים בה. משום שבתודעתם אין מערפלים, אין בהם פחד. משום שמוקלים מעבר לשגוי, הם מגיעים לשלמות של החלוף מעבר לצער. כמו כן, להסתמך על שלמות החוכמה, הגיעו כל העבודות השוכנים בשלושת הזמנים. שלמה לחלוטה שלמה בהחלט. לפיכך, מנטרת שלמות החוכמה, מנטרת הידיעה הכבירה, המנטרה שאין נעלה ממנה, המנטרה המשתווה למה שאין שווה לו, המנטרה המשכינה כליל שלווה בכל הסבל, משום שאינה שקרית, אלא שהיא אמיתית. מנטרת שלמות החוכמה נאמרת, דייתה, גתה גתה, פרה גתה, פרה סמה גתה, בודי סוחה. שריקות רע. על הבודיסטבא מהסטווה להתאמן כך בשלמות החוכמה מעמיקה. ואז יצא הבגבן, הטיפי הזה, ונשא מילות שבח, בודיסטבא מהסטווה, אריה אבלוקיטשווה. טוב מאוד, בין השושלת זה כך, בין השושלת זה כך. יש לעסוק בשלמות החוכמה המעמיקה כפי שציינת, ותתגתות אף הם יסמכו בך. מי שהעניק הבגבן את אמונתו כך, סמכו שריקות רע נכבד, הבודיסטבא מהסטווה אריה אבלוקיטשווה הרב העוצמה, הסובבים האלה כולם בצירוף הישויות השמיניות, בני האנוש, הישויות השמיניות למחליצה והגדרבה, ששיקחו את שאמר הבגבן. Taking refuge, בקשת מקלט בעמוד 10. בבודה, בדרמה ובקהילה העילאית, אבקש מקלט עד להארה. באמצעות המצבורים של הקשבה לדרמה, הוא השיג בודהיות כדי להועיל ליצורים הנודדים. בבודה, בדרמה ובקהילה העילאית, אבקש מקלט עד להארה. באמצעות המצבורים של הקשבה לדרמה, הוא השיג בודהיות כדי להועיל ליצורים הנודדים. בבודה, בדרמה ובקהילה העילאית, אבקש מקלט עד להארה. באמצעות המצבורים של הקשבה לדרמה, הוא השיג בודהיות כדי להועיל ליצורים הנודדים. לא יזכו כל בעלי התודעה באושר ובגורמי האושר. לא ייפרדו כל בעלי התודעה מסבל ומגורמי הסבל. לעולם לא ייפרדו כל בעלי התודעה מאושר נטול כאב. לא יפתחו כל בעלי התודעה את מידת ההשתוות ללא משוא פנים של התקשרות ושל סביבה.
So good evening. As you have recited the verse taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, it is important to that the teaching that we are following is taught by Buddha, completely enlightened being. Because of that, the teaching, Dharma, that he taught becomes extremely relevant, important for us. And therefore we have to regard the Sangha who follow the teaching of the Buddha also becomes very important. Buddhist desire liberation, then Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, they are protectors, they are refuge. Those who desire liberation, not for money or wealth, those who desire liberation, then Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are the refuge, the protectors. So therefore, when we take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, we need to clearly recall that we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha because we have some problem. The very concept of taking refuge is that in the human society, when we get a problem, then it's but natural that we take refuge in someone else who can protect us, who are stronger than us. Like for example, if it is raining, you take refuge in umbrella. At 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock when you're hungry, you take refuge in food. So this taking refuge is not something peculiar to the Buddhist teaching. And in fact, all the teachings of the Buddha are in accordance with the law of nature and our human condition. So therefore, here also when we say, I take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, you are basically saying, I have a problem. So now the question is, when you take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, first you need to have a clear idea. What is your problem? What's your problem? Now tell me, what is your problem?
We are suffering.
We are saying suffering, yeah. Are you sure? And of course, you can say suffering, which is true, but it's very difficult to get a precise understanding of suffering. It's easy to say that I want to get rid of suffering. I don't like samsara after having studied the teaching of the Buddha. But deep down, actually you are liking samsara. So we are saying that so far, not bad, samsara.
Light samsara.
Like.
Light.
So we are scared means you want to die, don't want to die. Don't believe in the samsara. So therefore, when we talk about getting rid of suffering, we have to have a recognition and understanding of suffering. You call it suffering or dissatisfaction or limitation, whatever you want to call it. We need to know that. Arya Deva in his 400 verses clearly says that one who is not fed up with the samsara will not develop respect to the nirvana. Just like one who is enjoying his present home will never think about leaving that home. Yes, and when you have a problem in the home, not getting along well with your husband or wife or children, whatever, then you think about leaving that home. Or even in your country, if the country everything is okay, you don't. There's no need for you to leave. Now, so many people are living from Africa, from Burma. Why they're living? Because there is a problem in their home. Either they are destined to shoot, or they are not getting job. So with the hope that if they go somewhere else, it hopefully be better. But in the process, hundreds and thousands of them die on the road, in the sea. This is daily news. I'm talking about daily news, you see. So Dharma is daily news actually. So therefore, we need to understand the suffering, not on the superficial level, but the in-depth meaning of suffering. So that's why we are talking about studying the Four Noble Truths. Now, with regard to this teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha, after achieving enlightenment, he was requested to give the teaching, the nectar-like teaching that he had found. He was requested to give the teaching by the human beings and by the celestial beings. But the Buddha did not accept immediately. He said, free from fabrication, clear light, unconditioned, to whom I will teach it. Nobody will understand. So therefore, let me continue my meditation in the forest. I did not accept giving the teaching. I found something that is profound, peaceful, free from fabrication, clear light, unconditioned. 5. Clear light. I found something that is peaceful, profound, peaceful, free from fabrication, clear light, unconditioned. I found a doctrine or nectar. To whomever I teach it, nobody will understand it. So therefore I will not speak. I will just stay in the forest. So he did not accept to give the teaching right away. But when I was repeatedly requested by the celestial beings like Brahma and all his countless followers, and also human beings, saying they have found may not be people or sentient beings in its entirety completely, but there are among sentient beings some with good wisdom, so they may be able to understand a little bit. And since you have found like a nectar-like teaching, you must share it. So when he was repeatedly requested to give this teaching, then the Buddha thought, as he said earlier, that I cannot give it to everybody who will not be able to understand it. So with his wisdom, he thought of giving the first teaching to his 5 disciples, who was always with him for a long time, especially when he was undergoing a lot of hardship. But when he realized that just undergoing hardship will not lead to liberation, when he started eating, then the five disciples left him, saying that, okay, now he's going in the wrong way. So they were when he achieved enlightenment, they were not with him. So when this request was, then the Buddha, with his wisdom, thought that the five followers, the five close disciples who were with him for a long time. Actually, he thought about two other teachers. One was Udarak, another I don't remember, from whom he learned a lot of meditations. But he found that just few days back, both had passed. Then with his wisdom, he tried to locate the five disciples and then found that they're in Varanasi. Okay. Why the Buddha was looking for these five disciples, the text, the sutra clearly says, because he wanted to give this teaching to somebody, a sentient being, who is pure, who is by nature good, who is easy to tame, who easily understands the teaching, who easily can train the teaching, who has less attachment, less hatred, less anger, and whose consciousness is not completely hidden, and who, if do not hear the teaching, may fall down, may degenerate. So he wanted to give his teaching to such followers, because he realized that if he gives such a teaching to such kind of students, then without developing much doubt, they will be able to understand the teaching. So therefore he decided to give his first teaching to the disciples. And when at the last part of the night, the last part of the dawn, he invited the five disciples, and then he started his teaching by saying that, O bhikshus, somebody who has renounced his life, do not enter into any of the two extremes, the two paths which are extremes. The two extremes are, extreme is one who is excessively attached to desire, a luxurious life, desire. Because if you follow such a path, then at the time of death also you will remain an ordinary person without achieving any liberation or any higher enlightenment. Because desire is something that lives in as an ordinary person. And it is something that for a super Arya is not needed, and it's full of harms, and which will also lead to not to be able to lead a celibate pure life in the future lives. You will then not be able to develop the initiation. You will not be able to get separated from desire. You will not be able to reach the level of cessation of sufferings. You will not actualize higher qualities like clairvoyance, precognition. You will not actualize enlightenment, and you will not be able to transcend suffering. Secondly, the other extreme is the extreme of self-torture in the name of religious practice. In those days also there were some who would go to the extreme of giving a lot of physical torture, like jumping on a trident. It's a trident up, you jump on it and kill yourself, or who would burn their body or fingers in the name of religious practice. Still some of these practices are seen in various parts of the world. So Buddha, based on his own experience, clearly realized that one should follow a middle path, which is not too much self-indulgence or too much self-exhaustion. Because if you follow this path of self-torture, it will tire your body, make you suffer, full of harms. In this life also you will suffer. In the future life also you will suffer. So therefore, the bhikshus should give up these two extremes and follow the middle way. So follow the middle way means the eighth noble path. Eighth noble path. That is correct view, correct realization, correct speech, sometimes right speech also, right or correct speech, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditative stabilization. So follow this eightfold path. Similarly, one should follow the Four Noble Truth. The truth of the suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, the truth of the cessation of the suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to such cessation. So now you can see very clearly with this sources that out of the three turning of the wheel, three cycles of the teaching that he gave, the first cycle of teaching, Dharma Chakra we call it, is the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. In the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha said, suffering should be known. Origin of suffering should be eliminated. Cessation of the suffering must be actualized. The path must be meditated. One cycle of teaching on Four Noble Truth. The second cycle of teaching on the first cycle of teaching was, he said, this is truth, this is the truth of the suffering. This is the truth of the suffering. This is the origin of the suffering. This is the cessation of the truth of the cessation. And this is the truth of the path. That was the first cycle of teaching. Then in the second cycle of the teaching on the Four Noble Truth, he said that suffering should be known. The cessation of suffering must be actualized, and the path must be meditated. In the third cycle of the teaching, he said, although suffering should be known, there is nothing to know. Although the origin of suffering must be eliminated, there is nothing to eliminate. Although the cessation of the path must be actualized, but there is nothing to actualize. Although the path must be meditated, but there is nothing to meditate. So this is the way he taught the Four Noble Truth in this kind of three levels or three cycles. Now when he gave this talk, you need to remember the way he was giving the teaching. He said, this is truth of the suffering. This is the truth of the suffering. So where do you think he's pointing? He did not say that. That is the truth of the suffering. He didn't say. He said, this is the truth of the suffering. So where do you think he's pointing? He's pointing towards the psychophysical aggregate. Pointing physical aggregate. Because it is the psychophysical aggregate which is suffering, which wants liberation. So pointing to, so when we even talk about samsara, we are primarily pointing towards this psychophysical aggregate. We're not talking about this, the world, external world is samsara, and then we live there, therefore we say we live in samsara. Many people understand samsara in this way, but that is not the way. Samsara, which keeps on turning, cycling, is this psychophysical aggregate, which dies, then take birth, and then dies, then take birth. That's the cycle. This is the truth of the suffering. It's this psychophysical aggregate which is the truth of the suffering. So we need to know this. How did this truth of the suffering of the psychophysical aggregate came into being? It is originated from afflictive emotions and negative actions. Again, where is that negative emotion and afflictive emotion or contaminated karma? Where is it? Outside or inside? Huh? Inside again. Within one's continuum. And the cessation of the suffering, the cessation of the afflictive emotions, that state of being free from afflictive emotions and suffering, that is also found within. Because when your mind is without suffering and afflictive emotions, that state is called cessation, suffering. And then finally, when we talk about the path, that also has to be cultivated within. The path includes the Eightfold Noble Path, as I've already explained, the three trainings, the ethical discipline, meditative civilization, wisdom, that also one has to cultivate within oneself. So therefore, he was pointing to oneself. This is the truth of the suffering. This is the origin of the suffering. This is the cessation of the suffering. This is the path leading to the cessation of the suffering. So now here, the most important thing for us is, as I've said during this visit in other places also, that by nature we want happiness and peace. To many people in different countries, do you all want peace and happiness? Everyone says, yes, sir. Then I ask the second question. For how many days you want that peace and happiness? For how many days? Because you said you want happiness and peace, yeah? So I'm asking, for how many days you need that peace and happiness? Huh? Huh?
All the time.
All the time, exactly. See? We are very greedy, you see? See? So this wish to have, this wish to go, this wish to have happiness and peace, and indeed this wish to have long-lasting peace and happiness, is this something that we learned from Buddhism or any religion? It is the way we are. We came into this world making the slogan, I want peace and happiness. The first thing that the child does after the birth is what? Crying. By crying, what do you think the child is asking? Long teaching on Buddhism, Fundamental Truth. No. What do you think the child is asking? Huh? Do you think the child is asking, is there anybody who wants to do some business with me? Because he has nothing to give. You see? This is Dharma. You should understand the way things are with a big eye, you know. Explore. The child has nothing to give. So when he's crying, he's definitely trying to draw the attention of somebody. But it's not definitely asking for a long teaching on Buddhism. He's also not asking for somebody, please come, I want to do some business with you. He's not asking. So what do you think the child is asking? Huh? Somebody's love. Not just the business love. That the grown-up people do, a lot of business love, calculated love. No. The child is asking, I have nothing to give you. I'm suffering. See, I came here naked from other world. I know nobody. Don't speak even one language. You see, today when we go around, we say, oh, it may be difficult for me to go to India because I speak only one language, you know. I only know Israeli. One might say like that. But at least you know one language. This child knows there's no language. The only language is crying. No money, of course, no friend, knows nobody. Does he know anybody at that time? Huh? I tell you a joke. Immediately after the birth of the child looks at the mother and says, have you met before? The child asks the mother, have you met before? The mother says, no. Then why you are taking so much care about me? There's a lot there. This is a joke, but there is a lot of meaning there. You find that out. So at that point, when he was in such a helpless situation, what is really important, useful is somebody's genuine care, love, and affection. Whoever that person may be. Mother is a classic example, but anybody. He's not asking for money at that time. Not asking for name and fame. Later on, of course. Later on, we'll all become experts, you know, in asking for many things. For me, this is really interesting how we started our life. But gradually, we forget that. Then we go to more dividing. Don't practice Buddhism. Buddhism is best, you see. The other religions are not so good. You know, people start saying things like that. Horrible. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is trying to promote universal religion. He calls it several books. If you are not doing, please do it. Not name. It's just secular ethics. Secular ethics. So in your group studies, read these books. Read in English. Millennium. Universe in a single atom. The 3 Art of Happiness book. And then latest Beyond Religion. Read those books. and make sure that these are translated in Hebrew. I'm sure it. I mean, these are not talking about Buddhism. These are talking about fundamental good human values, without which we cannot live together, without which we cannot survive. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama very clearly said that this kind of universal spirituality is more important because the majority of the people of this world, in the true sense of the term, are non-believers. Those who say, I follow this religion, their religion may be many, but who really believe in the religion and do the practice is very small number. So the majority really don't have a religion, but they need happiness, they need peace, they need harmony. So for that, the basic good human qualities, the way we started our life, the need for that unconditional love, this must be promoted between Israelis or Palestinians or Arabs, It's really important. So discuss those things, and this can be discussed in the issue. You can make effort to make these books available and make it a kind of study whenever you tell them this is really good. There's somebody called the Dalai Lama who is working so hard, and we all have a responsibility. This is not for Tibet. You see, this is important. Okay. So therefore, the Buddha, when he gave this fundamental teaching on the fundamental truth, also, he gave this teaching after, not of course, after gaining a lot of spiritual experience and so forth, not only in this life but before many lives. Number one, and based on a proper observation of the human condition. He has been looking what these sentient beings are in need. Sentient beings, human beings, or dogs, or animals, or birds, or insects. They're all looking for peace and happiness based on their limited capacity. Everybody is trying. The very movement is for getting something so that they'll get some kind of peace and happiness. There's one Tibetan scholar, poet, he says, the legless earthworm runs in search of peace. The eyeless ant runs in search of peace. In short, the whole world is running in search of peace. And particularly today, everybody is saying, I'm busy. All the time, I'm busy. In ancient times, people did not have to run so much, you see. Today we are running and running, say everybody is saying busy, 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 busy. It is not important. It is what is important is what are you busy about. One has to check. It's not a fashion that everybody is running, therefore I will run. And the Buddha actually said, the Buddha in one of his teaching, he said, it will be very difficult to follow the Mahayana teaching. Because the Mahayana teaching says, the perfect path, peace and happiness here, so please come. But then people will say, oh, I don't think so. It may be here because everybody is going there. I will go there. Wrong direction. You see? People will say, I will go there because everybody is going there. So that should not be the process anymore, especially after you study Buddhism. After you develop some understanding, after you develop some conviction, then you need to see carefully, okay, rectify some of the wrongdoings, some of the ways you lived, where you unnecessarily wasted money, where you unnecessarily made yourself tired. Many of these things, if you use your common sense and logic and intelligence and observe carefully what is really needed, what is not so essential, if you make a distinction of this, you can cut down many of the unnecessary things. And if you are able to do this, you will be richer, you will save money. you will be healthier. You can use your human intelligence for more creative, productive things rather than running like a machine, you see. We are not machine. We are not machine means we have creativity. So therefore, it's important to first of all understand this teaching on the fundamental truth in their proper perspective, and especially out of the fundamental truth. The first truth is the truth of the suffering. And then when we study the truth of the suffering, many people, they have too much talk about suffering, physical suffering, mental suffering, this suffering, that suffering, too many suffering. Then people think, oh, Buddhism is very pessimistic. So pessimistic. But Buddhism is not pessimistic, it is realistic. Because out of the fundamental truth, it talks about the truth of suffering and its origin. Likewise, it talks about the cessation of the suffering, and the path leading to such a cessation. So, just like as Maitreya in his Sublime Continuum, Gyulama, Uttara Tantra, he says, sickness or disease is to be known. The cause of sickness must be eliminated. The state of health must be achieved. And medicine must be used. Give a wonderful example there by saying, for example, when you are physically sick, then first of all, in order to cure that physical sickness, you need to know that I'm sick. I'm sick. If you don't know that you are sick, you will not think about getting the treatment. For example, in the case of somebody who is insane and mad, that insane and mad person may be terribly sick, but if you ask him to go to treatment, that mad person will say, ha ha ha, I'm not sick, I'm very well, ha ha ha, you know, because he does not know he is sick. So similarly, the problem with us is, first of all, we do not, that's what I was saying earlier, we do not clearly know that we are really suffering. So therefore, it's important to know. And once you know that you are suffering, you are sick, then it's important to know what was the reason, what was the cause by which you become sick. Did you take poison food or something that is dirty or not clean? You need to check that. And then accordingly you can consult the doctor and so forth to find a way to eliminate the cause of that physical sickness. It is by doing that then you will be able to gain a state of health. Well-being can be achieved. Health can be achieved. And to achieve that health, one has to take medicine. Now here medicine does not mean only drugs. It includes food. In the Buddhist teaching it clearly says food that we eat is medicine. It is medicine. Best medicine actually. When we do not know how to take food properly, then we become sick and then we need to take the other medicine, the drugs. But if you're very good in what kind of food you should take, especially your mind and body, etc., you will not fall ill easily. So anyway, that's the process of treating your body and gaining health when you get sick. Especially if you're not only getting some kind of minor sickness, but if you're very, very sick and very, very ill, okay, then in that case you need to again rely on the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, as we said earlier. Just as when you are very, very sick, you need a doctor, medicine, and then somebody to. So similarly, when we are very sick, in terms of negative emotions, then we need the Buddha like the doctor, the Buddha's teaching like the medicine, and the Sangha is really like the nurses or the person who is helping you when you are sick. Okay. So therefore, just as when you are physically sick, you need to adopt these four methods. So similarly, now we are mentally sick. Do you think you are mentally sick? Ordinarily, if people are not prepared, if I say you are mentally sick, they'll get angry. You see. They'll get angry. So I'm not saying in that sense. I'm saying in the sense of having negative emotions, we are mentally sick. Anger is sickness. Attachment is sickness. Jealousy is sickness. All these negative emotions make us sick. Okay, so therefore, we are mentally suffering from mentally sick. And the cause for that mental sickness is the negative emotions, anger, jealousy, attachment, and so forth. And these afflictive emotions like anger, jealousy, and so forth can be removed by the practice of the path of the virtuous qualities, like loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, and so on. And through that, then you will be able to eliminate these negative emotions and achieve the state of cessation of these afflictive emotions and sufferings. That is called true cessation. So this is just an example. Okay? So, therefore, now we need to talk about all these different kinds of sufferings. Atisha, in his lemma of the path to enlightenment, says that there are three types of individuals. Small individual, in the sense of their small intelligence, middling individual, and great individual. Small individual, or small individual here means one who through various means and methods try to achieve the pleasures of the samsara, the well-being within samsara. So one who strives by different ways and means to achieve the state of well-being in the samsara. Alone, only that well-being in the samsara, nothing more. That's called small individual. Small individual. One who by different ways and means tries to achieve a sense of well-being in the samsara alone,
Yes, yes.
only in the samsara.
Yes.
Okay, so that is small individual. Middle individual are those one who has turned their back against the samsara. That means who doesn't like samsara. One who has turned their back towards the and who had stopped committing negative emotions, afflictive emotions, and who aspire to achieve peace of liberation or nirvana just for oneself. That is called person of middling capacity. Middling individual. Third, the great individual are those who, by observing the sufferings that is there within them, also wants to eliminate the similar types of suffering that is found in other people. Who tries to make an attempt to completely eliminate the sufferings that is in others. Such an individual is called great individual. So therefore, this practice on the Four Noble Truth according to the teachings of the stages of the stages of the path, Lamrim. This is follows section of the middle. Okay, clear. Now that means it is the small individual who tries to achieve the life of a human being or a god just within the samsara. So unlike these small individuals, the people of middling intelligence, even though they also like to achieve a human life, a life of a god, but they would not see that as the only possible achievement, but they would try to achieve the peace of nirvana, the renouncing of the samsara, by practicing the three trainings: morality, meditative stabilization, and wisdom. So that way, those people are categorized as people with middling. But when we engage in the Mahayana practice, then in order to achieve the higher paths, we also need to have this aspiration to obtain human life, to obtain nirvana. Not just human life, not just nirvana, but they are needed. Okay? But they are not the ultimate achievement. The ultimate achievement is Buddhahood. But for that, you need to also aspire to achieve the human life, a good rebirth, and so forth. Because if you don't start from the beginning, step by step, if you simply say, I'm a practitioner of the highest path, the Mahayana path, and you look up on the practices, then because of that, for example, if you are born in a lower rebirth, then of course you will have to experience countless suffering. And you will not be able to get liberated. However, even if you are unable to, even if you do not have to experience those sufferings of the three bed migrations, just like a person who is liberated from prison, you might get a lot of joy. But even though you are freed from the prison right now, there is no guarantee that you will not be caught and put back into the prison again. So similarly, unless you achieve the higher levels of the paths, especially the enlightenment, however, great things you might achieve in this samsara, you experience it, next time you will again fall there. It will be the same thing. So therefore, to these teachings, there's hardly anything that we have not enjoyed in the samsara. In countless lives, we have enjoyed almost everything in the samsara, the things that is available in the samsara, in the contaminated world. But where are we today? Same situation. Not much progress. So therefore, by following this Mahayana teaching, what we are trying to do is that now we reach a secure level so that there is no falling back from there. Because we all said we want the long-lasting peace and happiness. Long-lasting peace and happiness is Buddhahood, or at least nirvana. Long-lasting peace and happiness is not that you are again born as a human being and have a lot of money and a lot of servants. Not long-lasting peace and happiness. That's for sure. Okay. So therefore, challenging project. And this is elaborated by the fifth Dalai Lama. So here he says, for example, yesterday was very hot, yeah? So when you are going out and very hot, suddenly somebody sprinkles some water, very nice. But very soon the same heat will come, it will not give you the complete cooling. So similarly, what we are experiencing today in the samsara is like that experience. It's short-lived. It's not going to give you the long-lasting peace and happiness. So all contaminated happiness are like that. Contaminated happiness are like that. So therefore, in Buddhism we talk about 3 levels of suffering. Suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and conditioned suffering. Suffering of suffering means like when you get a headache or stomach ache, or when there is a big boil on your body. You can easily feel that this suffering, this is problem. I'm getting a big headache today. Okay? That you can feel. Even animals can feel. That is suffering. Nobody likes that. Nobody's like that. We want to get rid of it. That's why we go to take medicine and go to the doctor or hospital and so forth. Honestly speaking, even here, suffering of suffering, much of the suffering that we experience may have to do past life, but also in this life, it's due to our negligence and not being able to take care of the causes and conditions before they arrive, that we experience a lot of suffering of suffering. Whether it's stomachache, headache, whatever, because you eat the wrong food, you don't take proper rest, you are mentally tensed, depressed. Because of that, you get all these problems. So even in the case of the suffering, before the suffering is manifest, you can really take steps even in this life, so that you will have less of these experiences. And we are not able to do that even. See, we only shout and complain when you have the problem, but not before that. So there you can see that we human beings make a lot of mistake by not taking the causes and conditions into their proper perspective. If it is experience of physical well-being and so forth, that comes from its causes and conditions. If it is physical illness and suffering, it comes from its causes and conditions. That's what the Four Noble Truth is about. So right from the beginning, if you had taken proper care of your body, your mind, many of the sufferings in this life will be gone. So before we talk about the other sufferings, even here we have to do a lot of work, at least for temporary well-being. The second suffering is called suffering of change. Suffering of change. As this text says, that all contaminated happiness are suffering of change. Suffering of change does not mean it is suffering. Okay, suffering of change means that right now it may be not suffering, it may be happiness. But very soon it will change into suffering. For example, you came with probably some excitement to this workshop. Some of you driving all the way from quite far. So in the first few minutes, at least, when you sat down, it was comfortable. Now as time goes on, happiness that you experienced when you sit down changes into suffering. Your knee starts paining, your back starts paining. That's called suffering of change. This is really, beautiful teaching, because if you see carefully, almost everything that we enjoy in our life is like that. You see. When you for the first time meet a new friend, you really feel happy, you become close and quite happy. Then very soon, change again, bring a lot of suffering. Clearly showing that that was not real happiness, long-lasting happiness. If it is genuine happiness, then the more you enjoy it, the more it should be able to sustain. But the more we spend time, the more it will change. And change into what? Suffering. When you sit for a long, long time, suffering. Then in order to get happiness, you stand up. Wow, you do some stretching. Very good. Then how long you are going to stand and do the stretching? After some time, oh, sit down better. Sit in the sun. Wow, good, nice. How long you can sit in the shade? You start feeling cold, So friendship, name, fame, many of these things that we enjoy are suffering of change, not reliable. But what? Not reliable, not unreliable happiness, but you said you wanted long-lasting peace and happiness. You did not say that you want changing, insecure happiness. You did not say. So therefore, we need to look for those states of happiness and peace, which is long-lasting, which is reliable. Ordinarily, we try to get happiness and peace mostly from outside, from your friends, from your relatives, definitely from money and wealth. And particularly in today's world, most of us think that if you have money, then all problems can be solved. Today we are living in a world where it really looks that everything is for sale. If you have money, everything can be bought. Because everything is for sale, including human values. We should make an advertisement saying that we have human values to sell, who wants to buy. Really, human values are sold now. Now, if you sell your values, then what is left? Then, of course, you have no value. When there is money, if you will engage in corruption, that means value sold. But the reality is that what is outside of you, money, wealth, family, friends, all these things that is outside of you cannot be the source of long-lasting peace and happiness. What is outside of you means your dearest brothers, sisters, husband, wife are included. They cannot be the source of your long-lasting peace and happiness. Now you should think for that whether this is true or not. When we say that what is outside of you, including your wife and husband, cannot be long-lasting source of peace and happiness, I do not mean that your husband is bad or wife is bad. In many cases in today's world, unfortunately, they are bad also. So of course you cannot get happiness. Forget about long-lasting, but temporary happiness also you will not get. even very good husband, wife, brothers, sisters, even they cannot be the source of your long-lasting peace and happiness. Why? Because they are outside of you. Because they are not there to entertain you. Do you think they are there to entertain you? If they have no purpose for themselves, they are only there to serve you day and night, 24 hours. Just as you have your life, they have their life. You need to respect their life. For example, look at a beautiful tree that is growing outside. We can enjoy that tree, looking at it. The flowers, we can enjoy. The fruits, we can enjoy. We get some peace, some happiness. But if you start thinking that this tree is growing just for me, it grew for me, peaceful, wrong. Nature is not there to adjust your needs. The climate of Israel, whether it's hot or cold, does not come seeing whether what is the need of the people. Nature goes its own way. Events, happenings, nature, they have their own system and they will go in their own way. So to complain against the nature that is not appropriate to your needs, stupid. When you do that, then you are bringing unnecessary additional suffering. So therefore, you need to very clearly understand that even though I do not have control over what is outside me, do not have control over changing situations and events and happenings, but how should I react to these changing situations and happenings is definitely in my hand. How should I react to these changing situations? That's in my hand. So therefore, one of the core teachings in Buddhism is that you should always maintain a holistic viewpoint. A viewpoint which is true to the way things are. We talk about emptiness. Emptiness means where things are, the way it is. Realize emptiness means understand emptiness as it is, not something that you have included, but as it is. Realize impermanence means it's another law of nature. So understand impermanence means understand the law of nature, impermanence as it is. So similarly, we need to understand people as it is. Once you're able to develop that mental perspective, you will be able to reduce much of your suffering. Even if somebody is doing something negative, something bad to you, you will not bother much about that. Because you clearly know that number one, you have no control over them. Number two, if somebody is angry, it's their problem, not your problem. If you're not angry, you will not have the problem. You get problem because you let yourself ruled by other people, you see. You let yourself affected by other people. You make yourself vulnerable to other people, then you suffer, you see. When your attitude is wrong, then there is a thick black cloud, hide in the sun. Again, you get angry. I want to sit in the sun. Look at this damn cloud. Even with that, you see. So if somebody is really angry with you, then you need to understand that this is his or her problem, that I should not get affected by it. I should not become unhappy. I should not join into that bad atmosphere broil, you see. Because that other person is getting angry because that person not necessarily getting angry with you. Person right now is because something is there inside her that made her angry. And you become a victim because you happen to be there. So if you're not there, she will get angry with her child. If the child is not there, she will get angry with the kitchen, kitchenery. Maybe break a plate or whatever. You see? It's like that. So therefore, how much you are going to suffer is very much dependent upon how would you react to the changing situations. Much of the sufferings that we encounter today is because we have this habit of not understanding or not trying to conform to the law of nature, but simply complaining because something is going against your wish. Therefore, you keep on complaining. You're not able to take the advantage of that changing situation. You're not able to act of that situation. You're only able to see one thing that was hurting you because inside you there is something wrong. You see? So that situation immediately provoked what was there inside you. Nothing else. Nothing else. So although these practices I'm not saying are easy, but there's no other way. There's no other way. If you really want to have that long-lasting peace, happiness, you need to change your mental attitude, your mental outlook. Lot of homework to be done here. You need to think about this properly. Then your daily life, you try and experiment it. And I did this experiment with on a small scale. For example, sometimes one of my staff, say in the library, comes very angry, for example. If it happens very rarely. So sometimes if it happens, somebody, I don't know why, if somebody is very, very upset and just comes into your office very angry and says something. Now if you also get angry, see, it will make the matter worse. So what you can do is, if you remain calm and tell strongly that, okay, whatever you have to say, please come later. Right now I'm busy. Okay? This fellow will go. And then probably will never come back. You know why? Because when he came in, he was angry. Then I asked him to come after some time. Then do you think he will keep on angry for the next 2-3 hours? Just waiting to see me angry? Very unlikely. He will cool down. And when he cools down, he realizes his mistake and does not dare to come to me. You see? So what I'm saying is there are different tactics. And on some cases, even if you're a little bit angry with that person, he says something strong and you also say something strong, that also happens. If that happens, then after that has happened, then don't keep it in your mind. Don't keep it in your mind. Normally we keep it in our mind. That's the problem. That's the disease. That's the disease. You keep on thinking and it will consume you inside. You will not be able to sleep and things like that. So what you do is seize the first moment to either sit with that person or buy a cup of tea, whatever, you see. Or you may be sharing some fruits, not just to him, but there are some friends, go them then say, hey. The person also gets an opportunity to talk to you. He is also looking for that opportunity. Nobody wants to just get angry all the time, you see. So there are different ways of dealing with things. And it happened with the Buddha himself. There is a story that when the Buddha was sitting with his Sangha, somebody came to the Buddha, very angry, and spat on his face. And then his Sanghas came and pushed him away or whatever. And when this man left, the Sanghas then said, Buddha, how come? This man spat on your face, but still you are sitting peacefully, doing nothing. Then the Buddha said, I am not irritated or concerned by that person's behavior, but I am concerned with your behavior. You are with me, supposed to be doing practice with me. You are staying with me, supposed to be doing practice. But when this man with anger came and spat on my face, you are also getting angry. I'm ashamed of you. But this man, he spat on my face, there must be some reason for him. Since I don't know, how can I get angry? It's so interesting. How can I get angry? There must be a reason for him. So I was actually waiting for a time to ask him, what happened? What is the reason? Can I help you? You see. But anyway, the monks pushed him away. So it is said that man who spat on the Buddha's face, that whole night he could not sleep, thinking that how come this man, I spat on his face, still he was like peaceful and smiling. That disturbed him most. As the Dalai Lama's behavior disturbs most to the Chinese. They would like the Tibetans to bring arms and guns and fight so that they can do more damage to the Tibetans, to the Tibetan struggle, because they are merciless. You see. But when His Holiness, instead of getting violent and angry, he talks about having compassion to all sentient beings. He talks about Chinese brothers and sisters, And that really is one whole man, just one man, against the whole region. And that probably make them sleepless. So that's the thing. So therefore, what I'm saying is your mental attitude is the most crucial factor in our daily life. In terms of getting that long-lasting peace and happiness, if you have the needed mental qualities, like love, like compassion, like wisdom, like understanding, patience, wherever you go, you will be fine. But if you don't have this, wherever you go, you will always find somebody. Because I know some people, wherever they are, they have a problem. Wherever they are, they have a problem. There are some people who, wherever they go, they have no problem. How come? So this shows that it is not just the place and the country where they go, but it is the mental attitude with which you go that you get into these problems and difficulties. Okay, some questions maybe? Yeah.
You said that we are in samsara because our five aggregates.
Yeah.
So what about tulkus or his holiness Dalai Lama? How he gets?
Tulkus, there are so many different levels of tulkus.
How he gets? He gets the same aggregates, but not through the
There are different levels.
negative.
Yeah, many of them. Tulku does not mean that you are beyond samsara. Tulku simply means you are somebody who is having a higher level. So many of them are still in the samsara. Then many may not be in the samsara, but how can we judge? It is their internal quality, you see. They will act. Even the Buddha came into this world with the 5 psychophysical aggregate. Even he acted that he is also sick, getting sick. He died by eating what? Pork or mushroom or something. The last thing. Food poisoning. He died. Passed away. So that we say that was not an ordinary death. He was showing to all of us that this psychophysical aggregate is prone to this kind of illnesses and so forth. So that we cannot judge who is who. But again, one thing is certain is that if your mental attitude is, whether you call it spiritually or otherwise, if your mental attitude is of pure quality, you will suffer less. This for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Before when the Buddha attained enlightenment, he said he found something profound, peaceful, purification. It's like clear light and unconditioned. Can you say which each of these?
I think they are all basically referring to the ultimate nature of the mind. ultimate nature of the mind, and also the subjective mind, which is the clear light, ultimate mind, and also the ultimate nature of the mind, which is shunyata, emptiness, which is of course profound, unconditioned, unfabricated. This is similar to the I think opening verses that we see in the Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, where it says that there is no cessation, no coming, no going, and so forth. So unfabricated. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes, please.
It's about the Sakadeva, it's not about the...
Sakadeva.
Yeah, why there are so many dates?
Huh?
There is in the 25th, there is on the 2nd of June, there is on the 15th of June. There are different
What?
days, there are different dates. The different Buddhist groups say this is the Sakadeva. Can you explain how?
I don't know. That is dependent upon that is the historically when Buddha was born, exactly at what date. There is no unanimous agreement. Because why? Because in ancient times, not only Buddhism, Christianity also they have same problem. Judaism also, I'm sure, same problem. Because one in those long time before there was no proper mathematical calculations, okay, and no writing, proper writing and recording is. So that problem is same in all the religions. So that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is saying that, for example, these days in India and Sri Lanka, many places there are what they call as relics of the Buddha, the truth of the Buddha or something like that. Then he says, in order to really find the dates, bow down 3 times respectfully and take the relic and scientifically test it. Yeah.
Because we're talking about 3 kinds of suffering.
Yeah.
Suffering of suffering, suffering of change.
Very good.
The last
Third was conditioned suffering. Conditioned suffering. Yes, good reminder. Because conditioned suffering means that we have suffering, we have suffering of change. Because basically something is wrong. Therefore, you are getting all these other sufferings. Condition means that your psychophysical aggregate, your mind and body are conditioned emotions and karma. Like if you look at your body, it's made of flesh and bones and blood and things like. It's not made of diamond or even stone or iron, So naturally it's susceptible to pain, problems, difficulties, you see. So because of this very nature of the mind and the body, and the mind also not the mind of the Buddha, mind with the wrong attitude, wrong mental perspective, deluded mind. So naturally you will suffer. That's called conditioned suffering.
Another thing is, how much of the human expectations is responsible for the suffering? I don't know if I phrased it right, but
Yeah, very right.
it's our expectation.
Very right. Not very right
What
because
should be what should be happening, what we
Exactly.
want to control it.
Mahatma Gandhi said there is enough for everybody's need, but not enough greed. You see? So that is almost like a response to your question. So what I'm saying is, in our life, we have a lot of expectations. But many of these expectations are unrealistic expectations. Expectations which are not necessary, which are groundless, you see. So what is being taught in Buddhism is to have realistic expectations. Realistic. Realistic means something that you can really achieve and something that can really bring peace and happiness. These are realistic expectations. You see? Something that would not harm you, something that would not harm others. These are realistic expectations. Expectations that is, I would say, in harmony with the way things are. Even in the case of the spiritual practice, many of the Buddhist teachers, they say that in terms of your spiritual practice, you are not able to achieve much because your desire and your practice are in different directions. Your wish to practice and the actual practice that you do are in different directions. You see?
Sounds familiar.
Familiar, yes? Because you want something, but you do differently. You expect something, you do differently. Therefore, Shantideva in his Bodhicharyavatara says, even though we want happiness, but we destroy the cause of happiness as if it is our enemy. Even though we do not want suffering, but we chase after the causes of suffering, therefore we have suffering.
Is there a profit
Huh?
in suffering?
Huh?
Do we gain any profit from suffering?
That's what I'm saying. To have right mental outlook and mental perspective. The same teacher, Shantideva, in his Bodhicharyavatara says, suffering is introduction to happiness. Suffering is introduction to happiness. If you suffer, you will also be able to appreciate and understand the sufferings of other people. If you suffer, you will be able to understand that this is due to negative causes and conditions. Therefore, I must not accumulate more negative causes and conditions. When you suffer, then you develop the spirit of renunciation, the wish to come out of samsara. So that's what I'm saying. That's why sometimes I use the word, instead of suffering, I sometimes use the word challenges. Challenges. If you run away from challenges, you will not learn anything. There is no opportunity. But if you do not run away from challenges, face it, you learn many new things. I give the example of two wrestlers, Two wrestlers, when they wrestle, because there is an opponent wrestler, therefore you are able to wrestle and build your muscle, you become strong because of this challenge from the other wrestler. So similarly, therefore many of the Buddhist teachers who engage in mind training practice, almost in a sarcastic way, they say, when they hear about the word suffering, this, what? What do you mean by suffering? What? Because for them, it's only how you see things. It's only how you see things. That's why I'm saying that you should cultivate proper mental outlook. Much of the suffering that we are experiencing are not even suffering. They are not, believe me, they are not suffering. They are our mind made up. Your stupid mind, your short-sighted mind thought that you are suffering from this, from that. You cultivate those negative emotions, you start suffering. So they are not suffering actually, in the true sense of the term. So if you change your way of thinking and attitude a little bit, 60-70% of your suffering will disappear like that. Then the next 20% of suffering may be suffering, but changeable suffering. So instead of sitting there and complaining, if you make a move and find the solutions, you can change them. So the next around 20% of suffering can also be removed. So around 70, 80, 90% of suffering can be removed. So that leaves, only 10% of suffering, which are stubborn sufferings, about which there is nothing you can do. So what should you do?
Accept.
Huh? Except one way of saying this, except of saying is, go hell with you, go hell with you. I don't want to waste time on you, I have many other things to do. Why you just, get bogged down with thinking about this unsolvable problems, you see. Instead of that, do all those things which you can do. You see? So this is how the mental training and makes a difference in our life. Okay, enough for today maybe. Thank you. Dedication.
page 19. בזכות חסד זה, להוסיף ולהוביל למצב זה, תודעת ההערה היא לעברת, שטרם זו ותשגה עוד ברור. ארץ זו מוקפת נכסי הרים ושלגים, וכל הרווחה והעושר ללא יוצא מן הכלל. ותשבר הרב הפטנזים ביעצו, ותוותר עד קץ אפילו.
Thank you. Night. Good night. How's your knee? Good. Everybody's knee good.
Combination is